Hello there. So today what we're going to do is we're still working Godot, but we're going to switch over now to introduce a few more advanced topics. What I've done is I've pre-assembled a project to get us ready for the next stage, and I'm just going to go over in this video what I've done and what I've set up to prepare us for jumping into multiplayer. So what we're going to do is I've set up a bunch of artwork. I'm just going to switch over here to screen capture. And what you can see is I've got this simple animation of a zombie here. I just generated it quickly in AI, and then I cleaned it up in Krita and quickly made just a simple lumbering walk cycle for that. I also set up this glowing ball. I actually set that up for another project, and I just borrowed it for here. And I set up this soldier, same thing. I just generated a top-down AI, and then I went into Krita and I just switched the legs and stuff around and made him a simple walk cycle and a simple point and shoot gun icon. Nothing complicated, but what I wanted to do was actually have some art resources in there so that it wasn't just a square cube moving around shooting at another square cube. I wanted something, I like, even if I'm going to do something basic just to show it the concept, I still like to have at least a little bit of artwork with it. So I just quickly generated these and put them together in Krita, and they're ready to go. They're not perfect, but they're usable, and I've got them in the project. And yeah, so that's it. And I also just generated a quick floor just to set up an area here. And I'll go into the project now, and I'll just show you everything that we've set up and what we've got going on. So first I'm just going to run this so you can see what we have happening. So we've got the main interface screen here, and what I've done is I've set up two tabs. One tab here to set up the settings, because that'll be a future lesson. I figured I might as well just build it in now. And the play the game, simple title, zombie hunters, being a Canadian, of course I'm going to use a Canadian soldier, training, host session, join session, and exit. And right now exit works, join session doesn't do anything, host session doesn't do anything, and training just jumps you into this screen. Use WSAD and arrow keys to move around, press the space bar to shoot, pick up items, run over them, and they will automatically apply any upgrades. When you're ready, run into the glowing balls and enter the game. You move WSAD or arrow keys. And again, it's just a super simple walk cycle. It's not supposed to look fancy. Spacebar shoots. Nothing shooting yet. We'll set that up in the future, but whichever direction you shoot in. Up here, you've got your health and your ammo in a simple heads up, because as you run into things, say there was a health bar here, you'd run into that would add health. If there's an ammo bar here, you'd run into that and it would add ammo. Simple mechanisms to set up a simple playable game. And then come down here. We've got a lumbering zombie. Come down here. We got a ball, which right now just exits me back to this screen. But it'll actually bring me into an actual game session. Or maybe I'll just leave it to bring me back to here, and then you just do join session or host session. Anyway, I'll show you how I set that up. So let's just exit out. So what I did to start with was I had a start menu scene that I created, and in that scene it's basically just a bunch of controls. However, there are a couple of scripts attached to buttons. So basically just a 2D node as a container. I could have just gone with a control container, but I added that in because I like nesting my objects in my objects as identifiers. I probably do not need this node 2D, and I could have just gone with this control, but I nested it in there just out of habit more than anything, but you don't need to do that. Then I've got a tab container here, which is this play game and settings. That's the tab container. Then in that tab container, I have the play game container, which is this interface here. And then if we come down the tree further, we've also got the settings container, which I showed you is that other screen. So if I click on that, there's not much in it. It just says settings. There's nothing nested in it. Okay, so we come back to the play container. In the play container, we have the title, which is Zombie Hunters. Then we've got button to host, which is here. I'll select that. We also have the button to join, which same thing. It's basically just text. And then what I've done is I've gone down here into the overrides, theme overrides, and then on color, I've just said on font color hover, go red. And so when you hover over these, they all turn red. I've done that for all those buttons. Then we come down here to button join. Again, there's no script attached to it, and it's exactly the same as the host, except the text is different. And that's what we'll get into in the next session. We'll set up how to host and join a gaming session. Next is exit. Now that has a simple script attached to it. We'll come over here to scripts. We'll go here into the exit script. Pretty simple. We have a signal set up so that on button pressed, get tree quit. So it just quits the game. That's all it does. On pushing that button, it quits the game. Then we come down here to button training, and we go to the script button training, which was actually button test. I renamed it to button training because it made more sense. I didn't rename the script. I should probably do that. Same thing on button pressed, but this time you're changing the scene into the training scene. And that's what this get tree bracket dot change underscore scene underscore to underscore file brackets quotes the scene you want to go to, and then you just drag in the scene from your scene. So I just dragged the scene up, dropped it right into there. So that's all that does, and that script is just attached to that button. So again, if we go back in, I'm just going to hit run real quick here. If I go to this, it does nothing. Do this, it does nothing. Exit, exits. Training also goes and loads up that scene training. So I'm going to close that off. Now the other thing we've got going on is if I come over here now to, I've set up these other scenes. So we had to set up a zombie scene, which is simply, we'll go to 2D. Zombie scene is simply this guy with an animation attached to him and this circle for a collision shape. So animated sprite 2D, which I'll click on. Here it is, those 3 frames. That's all it is. There's only 1 frame for them. What we'll do is we've also got a raycast attached, and what'll happen is we'll have the script so that if the player enters that raycast zone, the zombie will start charging the player. Pretty simple AI, nothing complicated. Basically all we want to do is have guys swarm you and you shoot them and pick up boxes and things and have other people on the screen. So we're not getting complicated in the gameplay. However, we still want there to be some elements of gameplay, so we want the zombie to move towards the player. Now you could also add another raycast, another raycast out this way, another raycast out this way, so that if anywhere in a 360, or even if it was just on these 3 sides and not the back, maybe you want the back to be a blind zone. But anyway, however you do that, you're going to have the zombie charge you within a certain distance, and you could change the length of these raycasts. They're just a simple 2D raycast. I can shorten it, I can lengthen it, I can do whatever I want, and it will just leave it there. And then basically that just sets up the zombie, and then we set up the training room. We set up a teleporter, because teleporters will be used in the game to move between levels. So again, it's just a simple 2D sprite image. I could have added more animation or done whatever. I just gave it a glowing ball, and I gave it a collision shape 2D in the middle here attached. So it's static body 2D with a 2D sprite attached, and then underneath that layer we've got the collision shape 2D, which when the player hits with it, we do have a script here running. And if I go into my scripts, that script is teleporter. Right now, I just have it go back to the start menu. But what you would do is you would have that get tree command, change scene to file, go into another level. And that's how you would change between levels. Now I did show that before, but just as a recap, that's how you change between levels. So then we're going to go back here. We're going to go into the 2D. And now we're going to come back here to the training room, because that and the zombie are nested in the training room. So we go into the training room, and so what I've done in the training room is I have the zombie and the player in there. We'll cover the player last. Label 1, label 2. So these 2 labels are simply this text on on your instructions on what to do. And I just figured in this type of a scenario where it's just a how to play the game, just slap the text right there for the player, and so he can read it right when he's in, and then figure it out. And then as you come down here, there'll be objects to interact with, the health and the ammo boxes, in order to just give him powered up. And what we may do is in the player scene, we may also add to the player like a 3-thing selectable inventory box where you can click on or hit 1, 2, or 3 or whatever in the number pad, maybe both, click on and or number pad them. And then what that'll do is that'll let you reload your ammo or reload your health or switch to your standby weapon, whatever. Maybe it's a knife or something, I don't know. We can add to that later if we want to. Again, the purpose of this is to set up a playable area zone so that you can in effect add multiplayer to your game. Basically a host lobby system. So we've set that up with the simple instructions so you can learn to move around or whatever. Down here we've got the teleporter and we've got the zombie. And now what you're going to see here is you're going to see all these purple, this and red and yellow and whatever. And these are just different polygon shapes that are used as a bounding box. And what they are is I set up this Sprite 2D, just a pre-generated AI room with like tile floor and mountain with moss or whatever. Just a simple prompt, generated an AI screen, dropped it in as just something to work with in this training level. Now, obviously, if you were doing large levels and things like that, you wouldn't just use a single image like this. You'd use a tile set, or you'd use a 3D space of some sort, because you might do this as a 2.5D game, because ideally that's what I'm going to be working with. It's kind of the style I like, a 2.5D, but I'm going to probably be doing mine more in a real 3D world moving forward, but not for these lessons. Like, this is just simple stuff to get the concepts and to teach you how to make a functional game, like I've said many times before. So, but I also didn't want just a base cube moving around. Actually, I want you to be able to recognize the components of a game and have a little bit of art to it so that it's not like super plain boxes moving around. And where that comes from, just so you know, I think I've said this before, is I'm primarily like a level design type guy. I like designing the concepts of a game, the concepts of the story, and the levels that bring it all together. I'm not a hardcore coder. In fact, my coding is not great. I know enough to be dangerous, and I've always got to correct myself and go and look things up and do corrections. So if I was going to do a video on how to code specifically, and I've done a little bit in some of them, it's been a little bit painful because I'm not primarily a coder. I'm a level designer. And that also means that that's why I like to have some art and stuff, because I like to see the visual levels come together, and I like to see how things are going to look on screen. So I like to have at least a rudimentary aspect of art there when I start doing the level design and the building. I don't just like really super block out. I like to kind of see what I'm looking at so I can get a vibe, I can get the feel for the game, and then adjust things as needed. And that comes from being a level designer rather than an artist or B, a coder. An artist, they tend to really focus stronger on the art, and then the code and the level design come later. They really want to get their style of their art across, and that's their primary thing. Coder, code first, I'll fill in the art later, if I even fill in the art later. Unfortunately, a lot of coders stick with some really rudimentary art and stuff, and yet the mechanics and all the code behind the scenes are amazing and put together well. So, but I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying there tends to be a little more of that happening, and then the art gets fleshed out later, or they'll actually bring on an artist to do the art for them. So it really depends on your forte. I'm kind of a hybrid. I meet in the middle because I'm a level designer. I like the art. I like the code. I've rambled on a bit too much about this, but I just wanted to let you know where I'm coming from and why I'm not just blocking out. And why also my art isn't like, 30 frames a second seamless, and I'm working with like essentially 3 frames of motion. And it's because it's just rudimentary. It's my method of blocking out. Moving on. So I was talking about the polygons. So that's this polygon 2D collision, and basically that lets you click in a spot, click up here, draw another node, click over here, draw another node, click over here, draw another node. And you do that all the way around. And then when that's implied, you've got, if I zoom out, you can see that then you come around the outside You do a lot more basic on the outside because you're not really making the hard border for your players. You're doing just basically an outside perimeter to close that in and make it a big polygon shape that the player can't go through. And if I put that into motion here now, what you'll see is if I walk up here, I'm blocked. Walk along here, I'm blocked. And I'm just following that hard perimeter edge. And there's the player following that edge. So that's basically all you need to see, right? Just to show you how that works. That's following these edges all along in here. So now the last thing to set up, of course, is your player character. And so we'll pop over to the player character. And so all I've done here for the player character is I have set up that animation. We'll just show you that animation again. So it's basically, oh, that's the player shoot animation. Player idle animation is one character. Player walk animation is three frames. So this is the center frame. Shoot was that last frame in the art that I showed you where he's got his gun pointing, and I just added 2 frames of that and set the frame duration a little longer. And then the walk is just those 3 frames. And so that all comes together. Moving forward, moving backward, moving down, moving up, shoot, same frame for shoot, same frame and that middle frame for idle. So that's all that is. And then I've set up a container here, and that's for the health and the ammo. And it's real basic. It's just a container with a color rectangle in it, which has is just kind of a gray zone with some alpha transparency. If I click on that, you'll see here I'm just gray, and then I've got some alpha so that it's a semi-translucent sort of thing. Then on top of that, I've got labels, health bar, which is this health right there. Then health count, which is a 0 at this point in time. Ammo count, which is 0. And how we're going to set those up is those are going to be reflected in the player script, which we'll go over to now. We have the player script here. And what that'll be is those will be variables that are set up in here. Like we've got this variable speed set to move the player at 155. We'll have variable for health and a variable for ammo and maybe a variable for weapon. And we'll see if we do that. We may not even get that complicated in this. That may be to expand upon later if you want to add some more role-playing game elements or just more customization to your characters later. Might add that in. We'll see. Again, this is about setting up for multiplayer. So we set them up for speed. Then on ready, I've just done this is just a reference. I've dragged in the animated sprite just to have an internal reference to it. Then we got physics process delta. So basically we're just doing the vector 2 over time, and that delta normalizes out the ticks. If element is pressed, right UE, left UE, up UE, down UE, direction equals X, plus equals 1, minus equals 1, Y direction, plus equals 1, minus equals 1. Really simply just to rotate the player in its entirety in the direction you're facing. So it doesn't have to change up and use 10 different animations. It just rotates the existing animations in whichever direction. Again, if I was going for a more animations like I've done in previous videos, I would have render from the back. You could have 8 direction render from all sides. But in this case, I just went from one direction and I'm simply rotating it because we're setting up for a simple multiplayer. We don't need that complicated. We just need something that looked okay. So that's what we've got set up there. Then down here, we normalize the direction. Again, I like to put comments in to present faster diagonal motion. It just normalizes that direction if you happen to move on an angle. Then move the character. Velocity equals direction times speed. Move and slide. Real simple, used over and over in all sorts of 2D. Everybody uses that. It's just pretty much standard. Then rotate the sprite to face the direction of the movement. And that's just basically what's the vector 2. Okay, well let's change the angle and let's play If we're moving, play the walk. If we're not moving, if we shoot, which is the standard UI accept, play the shoot animation, and then otherwise just play the idle animation. So really basic setup. But what we will be doing is we will be adding the variables in here for the health and the ammo, and we'll get those set up and get the multiplayer set up. I'll implement those. I could just implement them now, but the video's already gone on long enough, so I don't really need to do it. But I'll just put them in the variables. Var health equals, and we'll set that to 50. We'll go down here. Var ammo space equals, and we'll set ammo to 25 bullets. Sure. Now, why do I have a... Oh. There we go. I had a capital. Again, syntax and stuff has always been my issue. I capitalized that var. So there, now we set that up. We'll just save the script. We'll end up having to make calls to it when you bump into objects and stuff, but I don't have that set up yet. And what we'll also have to do is we'll have to reference those in the health and the ammo labels, and then make them represent over delta on those things so that they're just affected every time something changes. You can also set that up as a timer, so that a timer goes every second or so and then updates them every second or so. But with such low ticks call and not a lot going on, you're probably fine just referencing those over delta. Wouldn't be so much of an issue. Anyway, we'll just save that scene, save all scenes, come back over here to main project, and that's all I really wanted to go over with you today. This is the setup. There's a couple little things I need to do just to make the health and the ammo there for you. And the reason I didn't set them up yet was because I didn't know if I needed to reference them in the multiplayer or not. Because what I'm going to have to do is set up two scripts, one attached to the player, or input, maybe not attached to the player, but put into the player script for the join session. For the multiplayer ability, and then I'm also going to have to set up a multiplayer host controller as a separate script, and I believe that becomes a global script. But I'm going to have to look into that and practice it a bit before I show it to you on camera, because I've only done it once before, and that was a while back, so I'll have to learn how to recreate it. So, but anyway, that's what's coming in the next video, is the multiplayer setup and implementation, and show you how to do that now that we've got all the prep work for it done. So I hope you stayed with me for the whole thing. I don't normally plug it, but you know, a like and a subscribe would be nice. I wouldn't mind growing the channel, because I think I'm doing some good stuff for people out there who are just trying to get in and maybe learn some of the stuff that other YouTubers haven't been covering, because I'm trying to kind of learn how to do the basics, but also build up to something much bigger. That takes putting all these pieces together, and by doing these pieces in these videos in just these small series of 2 or 3 videos, I'm hoping that it gets you up to speed. You can practice it in your own time, and then when I come back, generally a week, maybe 2 weeks later, you've been able to practice it and you're ready for the next part. So hopefully you stuck with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.